I'm Sarah DeA, and you're listening to Upstage on CKUT 90.3 FM and at ckut.ca, coming to you from my home yet again this week. For just over 30 years, Infinithéâtre has specialized in presenting new works by writers based in Quebec and Indigenous writers from across Canada. They also sponsor writing competitions to solicit new plays throughout the year. But as you know, theater is an ephemeral art. Even in this new age of streaming plays online, it's still an immediate medium. But Zach Fraser, the new artistic director at Infinithéâtre, has plans to immortalize the very plays they have originated, and it gives you a chance to put your favorite play on your bookshelf at home. InfiniPRESS is the company's new in-house publishing press. Their first publication is Fight On by now AD Emeritus Guy Sprung. It's a sprawling story about the development of Western Canada with counterpoint running commentary from Indigenous writer Drew Hayden Taylor. The company did perform part 1, but part 2 was scuttled by the pandemic. So this is the first publication coming out, but they have in the works 5 other publications, plays all previously put on by Infinithéâtre, and that includes Carolyn Gillette's 17 Anonymous Woman. First produced in 2005, she started writing it in 1997. Zach and Carolyn spoke with me last week. Welcome, Zach and Carolyn, to Upstage. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
So, Zach, you're still early days in your reign as artistic director at Infinithéâtre, and here you are launching a brand new project, a publishing press. Was this something that you wanted to do from the very beginning, or is this a more recent development?
It's probably been in my mind for over a year now, because we've just passed the 1-year mark of Guy stepping back and me stepping in, and I knew that it was something that I would like to do. And it was sort of on ice. And then we just decided, let's just do this thing. And I think one of the nice things about a company the size of Infinithéâtre is that we're big enough so that we have some resources to do things, but we're small enough that we don't get bogged down in steps and bureaucracy or whatever. We can just say, you know what, we're going to do this thing. Let's make it happen.
And here you are making it happen. The first publication, it's already out, correct?
That is correct. Yes. Fight On by Guy Sprung.
Now, was it obvious to you that you would do this it's one of the most recent productions put on pre-pandemic, and it is by Guy, who you've taken over from the reins over at Infinithéâtre. Was this definitely the first thing you were going to put out?
I didn't know at the beginning, but then it really made sense when we decided to move ahead. We did decide to move ahead specifically with that. Fight On went through 2 workshop productions, and it was entering Tech Week and shut down just as the show was supposed to open, with all other theater around the globe getting shut down in that same week. It was a big production with a cast of 11. At that point in a production, almost all the funds are out the door at that point. And so to say, hey, we're just going to put it on ice and bring it back, it doesn't work that way. So any potential future for Fight On was a huge question mark. But one thing that became clear was, how can we give some kind of closure and some kind of life to the piece at the same time? And this felt like a nice way to pay tribute to the piece, and in a way, I like to think of it as a gift to Guy as he steps out, and a way to let the piece, go out into the world.
It's almost like a grief process. It's acceptance, and you're paying tribute. What did Guy say when you told him?
He's really happy about it. He's and it also, if I can speak for Guy, because Guy at the moment is spending most of his days living in the countryside, in the forest, as it were, and he's taking a lot of time to himself. But I think as anyone who steps into some form of retirement, or stepping from a really active, busy life to taking a bit more space, I think it gave him a really nice focus for his first months away from the company, or stepping back, and it was a way for him to channel his energy and to it's a project. It was a fun project for him to go back on the piece and prepare it for publication.
Speaking of the piece, can you remind us a little bit of the story? It's a sprawling, ambitious piece.
Yes, it is epic in nature, and it goes into the early days, the founding days of Canada. As a historical piece, there's a multitude of figures from the early days of Canada. It is an exploration of various peoples coming together and the conflicts between them as Canada spread west. It's also, from a theatrical perspective, Guy was exploring mask work in there. It's a very few set pieces, but a slew of I can't tell you at this point in time how many characters, but there's I want to say there's like 80 plus characters in all. So it was epic in nature and two parts. So the year before there was part two presented, the year before that part one, and this is now one big thing. It started its life potentially as a screenplay, and then along the way, Guy said, "Hey, I'm going to explore this as a theater piece." And there you go.
And it's a big project. And I saw part one, and I wish I could see part two, maybe somewhere down the line. That is the voice of Zach Fraser. He is artistic director at Infinithéâtre. We're talking about the launch of their new publishing press wing, InfiniPRESS. I'm going to bring in Carolyn Gillette, who's with us here. Carolyn, thank you for being part of the conversation. One of your pieces is going to be an upcoming publication. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's a real delight. The day Zach called me and asked me if I would like to do this, I was like, yeah, it's like, bring it on.
Was it out of the blue? Like this kind of just like
totally out of the blue. Like couldn't have been more out of the blue, but it also couldn't, the timing couldn't be better because he actually called me the very, speaking of retirement and kind of changes, shifts in lives. After many years of teaching, I have just retired from teaching and have very recently launched myself into a focus on my writing. And there I was starting to write a novel. And Zach calls me up and says, "How about publishing that play you wrote 17 years ago?" I'm going, okay. It was a real treat and very exciting for me.
So tell me about 17 Anonymous Women.
Yes. Well, as I say, it's propitious, perhaps, if that's the right word. It was 17 years ago we produced this piece. It's a piece that I began writing even 7 years before it got produced. And it's about a whole bunch of women who are telling stories. The way that this particular piece was produced, beautifully directed by Diana Feiereisel, was with a team of 7 wonderful, wonderful actresses of all ages. And I like to think of the piece as a piece about revelation and transition. I would say that all 17 of these women who tell their own stories or tell the story of another woman who they encounter, they're at maybe a crisis point in their lives where something must change, and something does change. And it's a way of kind of tracking those big moments in one's life. And I talk about how there was a choice to tell the stories of women who I call are from here and now, and women who I call having been from there and then. So it's a real mixture of fairy tales, very contemporary stories on the street. Of course, what is contemporary now as opposed to what was contemporary 17 years ago, and that's all up for question. But I like to think that there's a universality in the pieces, in that yes, these are women. Yes, this was written in kind of was produced for the first time in 2005, started in 97. But these are human tales. These are stories of all of us experiencing the whole gamut of what it is to be alive, like the losses and the joys and the transitions and the ambitions and the rage and the whole bit, and our love for, and maybe even a little happy ending, and maybe a little bit of peace and acceptance that comes in the denouement, if you will, of the play.
Can you tell me about briefly the journey of one of the women, maybe one of your favorite characters?
Ah. Oh shoot, what a good question. Should have thought of that one before. Let's see, can you Zach, you want to throw one out there? Okay, well, there's this woman who starts out as it's called the Dumpy Housewife Wales. And there's a little bit of autobiography in this, but a lot of fiction, and it's about a woman who's feeling a little bit stuck in her marriage. She's got young kids, and she's always got mustard on her sleeve and formula all over the place. But she really she likes to sing, and she says to her husband, sometimes I need an hour off. And I go into my little room. So she has this room that is called her mad room, and she goes into it for an hour. And she just plays these old albums that she used to love, and she just sings like crazy. And all of a sudden one day she wakes up and she's reading it's really Now magazine, that had all the sex ads in the back, and there's this advertisement. This dates it quite a bit, right? There's this advertisement for this guy band who want a lead singer. And she says, her husband works at home. She goes upstairs. She says, I need some time. I'm going out. You take the kids. And she goes and she auditions for this guy band. And the guys at first are like, oh my God, who's this dumpy housewife? And, but then she sings. And she leads a little bit more of a fulfilled life.
And that's just one character. If there's 17 anonymous women, there's 16 more. That's wild to me. That is the voice of Carolyn Gillette, who is one of the writers who is going to be published in InfiniPRESS, the new publishing press wing of Infinithéâtre. Carolyn, thank you for sharing some of that play with us. You just said you started writing it in 1997 and it was produced in 2005. I want to switch back to you, Zach, because Carolyn's play is one of 5 to come that will be published by your new publishing press. So you decided that it would only be scripts that had been put on by Infinithéâtre.
So for now, this is where it lives. It still comes out of it. It's not completely out of left field, because Infinithéâtre is our mandate. Our focus is to develop, to produce, to plays and playwrights from Quebec and Indigenous writers from across the country in more recent years. And I think that one of the things that Infinithéâtre's done well for many years is that the multiple ways of developing and helping a script along. So there's play competitions, there's been workshops, there's been the unit for several years where playwrights are working together and looking at the dramaturgy. There's the reading series now, multiple reading series for youth and full-length plays as well. And then there's the productions. But one thing that I've often felt here in Montreal, but I think in several communities, is that often a play, there's a lot of energy put into it. You get a run of 2 or 3 weeks, maybe if you're lucky, and then that's the end of the life of that piece. You always hope for maybe there's a chance for it to go out one more place. Maybe there's the chance for a little tour, but most pieces honestly don't get that. And so they just go to bed and disappear. I wanted to find ways to celebrate the pieces and the playwrights that are working here. And so for now, because the company, that's what Infinithéâtre has been doing for so long, there's a whole wealth of plays that have been produced but never published. A few along the way have been published, but most of them have not. So this was a chance to say, wait a second, hold on, let's just take a moment, as like where we are right now with Guy stepping back. and me stepping in. It's also, and with the pandemic, it's a moment to look at the past and look at where we are now and look at the future. And it's a way to say, to take stock of everything that has been going on and to take a moment to like honor that and to give it more life if it can. And then moving forward, we will continue to do new works and we will continue to publish new pieces. I try to be realistic about the scale of the company. We're a mid-sized company. We're ambitious. We do a lot with the minimal resources we have, but we also need to remember my own office colleagues. They were joking. I don't think they're joking anymore. They're trying to remind me that we are a theater company, not a publishing house. So, but I think that it continues to be a way to extend the life. You know, I work in the CEGEP and system, and I realize sometimes the actors in the schools, even here around Montreal, they don't even necessarily always know their local playwrights. And they're not even aware of the work that's happening around them because so long as it just lives as a manuscript and not a published piece, it's hard for them to get access to that work. They don't know how to get access to it. So if we can facilitate the task and getting it out there so that people can, and then it gives it the respect that I think that these pieces deserve.
Respect, I think, is a key word, that it's kind of officially out there in the world, because theater is so ephemeral. Maybe we can get to that in a second, but I wanted to say, why choose Carolyn's play for one of the 5 that you are currently working on?
This might seem superficial, but I will say I arrived in Montreal in 2005. At the time, I did not see Carolyn's production, but for some reason, it was in the air. I mean, it was being produced. As I was trying to get to know the community around, I heard about the piece. I think it had actually just closed, but through the years, I always hear it comes up every now and again, and people don't forget the piece. Some pieces just are not forgotten. And as recently as a couple months ago, we were doing a workshop reading for Drew Hayden Taylor's piece, who's also implicated in Fight On. And we had Adrienne Richards, an actor, come in for that piece, and she saw on the wall 17 anonymous women, the poster for it, and she was like, oh, da, da, da. And so again, we got to talking about it again. I've known Carolyn for many years now, and I'd seen some of her other work. I didn't know this one, but knowing Carolyn and then through this, reading her piece, I love the style of the piece as well. I think, first of all, just the title itself, 17 Anonymous Women, tells me like this is a piece that it's a powerhouse piece for women of multiple ages and backgrounds. I know from the school system, so often we're looking for good writing for female performers. And again, it's still, there's not enough out there. This is chock full of it. And I like that it's both gritty and dark, but it's also playful. It's fantastical, but it's also it's very real. I like the fact that it's of here and now and it's of somewhere else. I like a playful theatrical universe, and I think that is all present in 17 Anonymous Women. And above and beyond all of that, Carolyn has had a long history with Infinithéâtre, and I was really happy to be completely justified on multiple levels to call out and say, Carolyn, I think that this is something that we should do. Literally one day I was looking at the wall at the office and I saw the poster again. And I said, I need to call Carolyn. And that's what I did that same afternoon. I called Carolyn.
And Carolyn, how does it feel to hear that?
It feels really great, especially because I think it may have been a little bit buried, but I don't think I ever lost hope that someday this play would have another life. As always, it's really risky to get new writing out there, and sometimes new writing takes time. It takes time to mature. You always wish you had more rehearsal as a writer, as all the creators wish they had more time. I was super proud of the work that we did, but I think inside me, I always felt this could go farther. This could go so much farther, given the time, given the energy. And then, of course, you run out of time, you run out of energy, you run out of money, you run out of momentum. But I'd never really, in my heart of hearts, I have to say, I never was ready to let it be just, oh, that piece I did a long time ago. I always, in my heart, thought, I want this to have a new life. The moment that he did call me, I knew exactly that was just waiting in my heart to happen, to have a reason, have a catalyst to try to go a little bit farther and revisit something that I think has actually matured.
We're speaking with Zach Fraser and Carolyn Gillette of Infinithéâtre. He is the artistic director. Her play, presented in 2005, is going to be published by the company's new publishing press. When is it going to be out? Do we have a date yet?
As we spoke on the phone, when I called Carolyn about it, it was interesting because I hadn't quite done the full math. And I was like, we need to do 17 anonymous women. You were the one on the phone saying that's coming up exactly on 17 years. So this coming September will be the 17th anniversary of the production. While, I'm not supposed to talk about plans for next season, but I think that the hope is to have a launch September, in around late September, probably around les Journées de la Culture. Last fall, we had our inaugural Park and Play, which was an open air reading series. I'm chewing on the exact format exactly, but that's when we should have it out at the latest, maybe sooner.
And hopefully we can all gather and be in the same place again safely. No worries, and pop a bottle of wine or champagne to celebrate.
Absolutely.
Carolyn and Zach, thank you so much for taking the time to take me behind the scenes here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate it.
And congratulations as well on the launch of this new project, and Carolyn, for you to have new life for your play. That was Zach Fraser and Carolyn Gillette. He is artistic director at Infinithéâtre, and she is the writer of 17 Anonymous Women, a play produced by Infinithéâtre back in 2005, soon to be published by the company's new in-house publishing press. And yes, that's right, if you're counting, 17 years from when it was first presented to its publication, hopefully this fall. You can get your copy of the very first publication from the press, Fight On, about the settlement of the Canadian West. It's only $20. You can get your copy and learn more at infinithéâtre.com, where you can also get more information on the playwriting competition for youth. They're now taking submissions. Infinithéâtre is also gearing up to present a new show, Mazel Tov, April 29th to May 8th. It's written and translated by Marc-André Thibault and directed by Ellen David. Tickets are now on sale. Infinithéâtre.com, INFINI theater.com. You have been listening to Upstage on CKUT 90.3 FM and at ckut.ca.